I took care of Grandma till the end. They all came for the will. Ever get that weird, floaty feeling when people show up too late for someone who's already gone? Like they're all dressed nice, holding casseroles and fake sad smiles, and you're standing there in socks with holes and dirt under your nails because you've been in it for months, and now these folks are acting like the main characters. That was me, a week after my grandma passed, standing in her living room, our living room, while my aunts, uncles, and cousins tried to figure out where the good china was. Let me back up. I was 18, just barely out of high school, barely being the key word, not exactly valedictorian material. Everyone else was moving into dorms or figuring out their Europe trips. Me, I was driving 40 minutes every weekend, then every day to help my grandma. Name was Elsie. She was a nurse for like 30 years, back when they wore those weird little hats and everything smelled like antiseptic. Raised 3 kids mostly on her own, grew enough vegetables in her backyard to feed a small army, and still had the energy to make me grilled cheese at midnight if I asked real nice. She called me kiddo. Always did. I wasn't exactly the golden child. My parents were too busy with their careers, and my older siblings were already out doing real-life stuff. I had a part-time job at a gas station, and grades that made my guidance counselor sigh out loud. But Grandma, she saw me, not as a failure or a disappointment, just me. So when she got sick, nothing dramatic, just one of those slow, creeping things that steals bits of a person day by day, I showed up. Started with helping in the garden, then driving her to appointments, then eventually staying overnight because she didn't want to be alone. Her house was old, smelled like lavender and old wood and something faintly burnt because she always left toast in too long. It creaked in places that made no sense, and the wallpaper peeled in the corners like it was trying to escape. But it was home. I didn't move in, not officially. But there were more of my clothes in her laundry room than at my parents' place by the end of it. I learned how to cook real food, kind of. Learned which medicines went with which meals. Learned how to comfort someone who knew they were fatting. She never complained. That was the worst part. Even when she couldn't get out of bed. Even when I had to help her to the bathroom or spoon soup into her mouth. She just said, "Thank you, kiddo." Every time. Like I was doing her a favor. I stayed the night the week she passed. I think she knew it was coming. She made me sit on the edge of her bed and hold her hand, and she asked me if I'd water the garden when she was gone. I said yes, of course, and she smiled like I'd just agreed to run the country. And she told me where she kept the good chocolate. Behind the oatmeal in a tin labeled raisins. Classic grandma move. She passed in her sleep early in the morning, peacefully. I was the one who found her. I sat with her for a long time, just sat. I couldn't call anyone right away. Didn't want the silence to end. Eventually I called my mom, then the rest of them. The wave hit fast after that: casseroles, condolences, phone calls from people who hadn't seen her in years. And then the talk about the will, because of course there was a will. And of course suddenly everyone was a legal expert. I kept my mouth shut. Just tried to get through the service, the fake sobs, the people telling me how much she meant to them while secretly eyeballing her jewelry box. And then came the day of the reading. I wore my only clean button-up shirt and sat in the lawyer's office next to Uncle Greg, who once called Grandma exhausting at Thanksgiving, and Cousin Leela, who brought a date to the funeral, a Tinder date, by the way. The lawyer, some dude who looked like he hadn't slept since the Bush administration, opened the folder, cleared his throat, and said, "Let's begin." Lawyer didn't waste time. Guy opened that manila folder like he was clocking out after this. "She left a brief statement," he said, "written in her own hand, notarized. Would you like me to read it aloud?" Everyone nodded like this was some kind of performance. Aunt Marlene was already crying, probably pre-gaming the tears. He cleared his throat. "To my family, if you're hearing this, I'm probably already gone unless the universe glitched and I somehow outlived all of you, in which case, wild. I'm not one for drama, so I'll keep this short. I've lived a long life. I've done my best. But in these last few years, one person truly stood by me. One person showed up, even when it wasn't convenient. You all had your reasons. I understand. But understanding isn't the same as forgetting. So here it is. I'm leaving the house, the land, and the entirety of my savings to my grandson, redacted for now, who gave me his time when it was the most valuable thing anyone could give. I hope the rest of you find peace, and maybe call your loved ones before it's too late next time. Love, Elsie." Silence. Like actual silence, not the awkward kind, the kind where no one breathes, the kind you only get right after something nuclear goes off but the shockwave hasn't hit yet. Uncle Greg blinked, twice. Aunt Marlene made a noise like a deflating balloon. Cousin Leela, she straight up laughed, then choked on it halfway through. The lawyer kept going like he was narrating a nature documentary. The house and land, located at address, estimated value $410,000. Liquid assets and savings, totaling approximately $86,000. Vehicle, a 2006 Subaru Outback, currently non-operational. All of the above to be transferred to my full name, pending standard probate. He turned the page. Additionally, a sum of $10,000 is to be donated to the Whispering Pines Cat Sanctuary in Fairview, per Elsie's request. I swear to you, I saw Aunt Marlene's eye twitch when he said cat sanctuary. Then silence again, until Uncle Greg broke it. "You're kidding," he said too loud. "This has to be a joke. She must have been confused. She was old, for God's sake." The lawyer didn't flinch. "It's all properly notarized. She was of sound mind at the time per both legal and medical documentation." "She didn't mean that," Aunt Marlene cut in, clutching her bag like she might use it as a weapon. "She probably thought it would get split up later, that it was just for tax purposes or something." $10,000 to a bunch of cats, Leela muttered. "That's more than she ever gave me." I don't even know what came over me, but I just said, "You never even visited her." They all turned to look at me, like I was the intruder, like I had shown up for the money. I was wearing a hoodie I found in the back of her coat closet and shoes with holes in them, because I hadn't really been home in weeks. And I swear, in that moment, I felt nothing. Not guilt, not pride, just this weird emptiness, like all the noise had gone underwater. "She left it to me," I said. "You heard the letter." Greg scoffed. "This is insane. You're a kid. What are you going to do with all that?" "Not abandon her, for starters." Okay, that one landed. Because Greg's face went red, Aunt Marlene actually gasped, and Leela just stood up and walked out without saying another word. The lawyer, bless his crusty soul, just shuffled the papers and said, "You're welcome to a copy of the documentation if you'd like to pursue legal action, but I'll be frank, it's solid. She knew what she was doing." They lingered, complained, whispered. But they left. Eventually, it was just me and the lawyer. He looked up at me over his glasses. "She was proud of you, you know." I didn't say anything, just nodded. My throat was a little too tight. Handed me a folder. "There's a few things you'll need to sign, but take your time. Grief doesn't care about paperwork." That night, I sat on the front porch of Grandma's house, my house now, technically, and looked out at the garden. Overgrown, unbothered by the drama. Her sun hat still hanging on the post by the back gate. I didn't feel rich. I didn't feel victorious. I just missed her, and I hoped wherever she was, she knew I'd take care of her little kingdom. Especially the cats. It started small. A text from Aunt Marlene. "Hey, sweetie, just checking in on you. Must be overwhelming. Let me know if you need anything." 2 days later. "Was wondering if you'd thought about selling the house. I have a friend in real estate." Blocked. Okay, I didn't block her, but I thought about it. Hard. Then came the others. Cousin Leela sent me a DM on Instagram, acting like we were suddenly besties. "We should grab coffee soon. You've grown up so much, girl. The last time we spoke, you told your Tinder date I was technically unemployed while I was carrying your grandma's casket." Uncle Greg, for his part, went full passive-aggressive. He called my mom, not me, never me, and said he was worried I was being manipulated by outside influences. What influences, Greg? The ghost of Grandma and a sanctuary full of emotionally balanced cats. Anyway, I didn't respond to most of them. Didn't have the bandwidth. I was too busy figuring out how to adult in a house with a leaky roof and a fridge that made a noise like it was dying in Morse code. Also, the press. Yeah, that happened. See, someone, still don't know who, tipped off the local newspaper. One of those little town circulars with headlines like "VFW hosts chili cook-off" and "Local teen raises money for duck pond." But this time it was "Teen inherits house, donates to cats, a legacy of love." Front page, picture of me watering the garden, looking like a thrift store scarecrow. It went local viral. Facebook moms in the area were posting stuff like "Faith in humanity restored" and "What a sweet boy" next to screenshots of my face. I went into the gas station for snacks, and the cashier said, "Aren't you the cat heir?" Excuse me, apparently that's what they were calling me. The cat heir, like I was some kind of whiskered Batman. One lady even stopped me outside the hardware store and handed me a loaf of banana bread. Just gave it to me, said, "For your grandma. She helped me after my surgery in '98. Good woman." I almost cried in the parking lot of a Home Depot. Thing is, Grandma was that woman, the one everyone loved, even if they forgot to visit. She showed up for people, stitched them up when they were bleeding, emotionally or otherwise, made pickles that could win awards and tea that tasted like childhood. So yeah, I was glad people remembered her. But it didn't take long before the attention twisted. Some local Facebook group, I won't name it, but it rhymes with Boringville Buzz, posted a discussion thread. Should teens really be given full estates? How responsible is that? Cue the pearl clutching. I heard he's spending it all already. Why not donate to something useful like the church? Where are his parents? My favorite. Seems like he manipulated an old woman. Sad. I posted once, just once. She was my grandma, I changed her bedpans, chill. Didn't stop the rumors, though. Then came the real kicker. Greg came back. Not just figuratively, literally. Showed up at the front gate in his overpriced SUV, holding a pie from the store like it was some kind of peace offering. I was pulling weeds in the front yard. Looked up, saw him standing there in his golf clothes, and genuinely thought I was hallucinating from heat stroke. "Hey there, kiddo," he said. He used Grandma's nickname. I swear I saw red for a second. What do you want? He did that thing where people act surprised you're not hugging them immediately. Just came to check in. It's a big responsibility, all this. Just wanted to make sure you're doing okay. Been doing okay for the last year without you, I said, not sure what changed. He laughed like I'd made a joke, then held out the pie. Apple, thought you might like a treat. I didn't take it. He stood there for a beat too long. Then, listen, about the will, I know Mom loved you, and you earned something no one's saying you didn't, but everything, come on, doesn't seem fair. Oh, fair, that word again. I wiped my hands on my jeans and looked him dead in the eyes. You know what else isn't fair? Getting a phone call at 2 a.m. because she couldn't breathe, and you're the only one who'll come, helping her to the bathroom, watching her forget her own birthday, and still coming back because she smiled when you walked in. He didn't say anything, just looked down at the pie like maybe it was gonna help him escape. And I said, you want something? You can have the compost bin. She always said you were full of shit. Left, didn't take the pie. That night I sat on the back porch scrolling through messages. More people messaging me about the article. A few cat lovers offering to send donations in Grandma's name. Even one lady from the shelter saying they'd put up a plaque for her. I couldn't stop thinking about how weird it all was. Grief is like a big, dumb party where the only person you want to see isn't there, and everyone else is wearing the wrong. It was a Tuesday. You know, one of those liminal space Tuesdays that feels like the week is gaslighting you into thinking it's almost over, but it's really not. I was in the garage, digging through boxes labeled Christmas, and do not open unless you're a me. Most of it was mothballs, yellowed receipts, and the kind of tinsel that disintegrates when you look at it. I found 5 broken flashlights, 3 snow globes with no water, and a VHS tape labeled Randy's Recital 1989, which was weird, because no one in our family is named Randy. Anyway, I heard a knock. Not the I'm a polite delivery guy knock, not even the I'm your aunt trying to act casual knock. This one had weight, rhythm, confidence. I wiped my hands on my hoodie, shuffled through the kitchen, stepped on exactly one Lego on the way, thanks to Grandma's emergency, for when kids visit box, and opened the front door. She was standing there like a scene out of a book. Old but not in that fragile way, more like oak wood, weathered, solid. Gray hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked like a no-nonsense warning, denim jacket, big earrings, smile lines carved into her face like someone had spent a decade sketching them. You must be Elsie's boy, she said. I blinked. Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm her grandson. She smiled just a little. She always said you had soft eyes. Can I come in? I let her in. You don't say no to someone like that. We sat in the kitchen. She brought her own tea bags, just whipped them out of her purse like some grandma-level Pokemon move. You got a name? I asked. Miriam, she said, but she called me Mimi. We worked together, nurses back in the day, before your mama was even born. I blinked. Wow, you're from before the pickles. She laughed. Oh, I taught her the pickles. That recipe's older than regret. We talked. Or, well, she talked. I mostly sat there with my jaw on the floor while she told me stories about Grandma I'd never heard. About late-night shifts at the hospital, singing to patients who were afraid. About the time they got snowed in and used bedpans to cook soup on a radiator. About a patient who died in Elsie's arms and how she held his hand like it was the only thing that mattered. You know, she said, sipping her tea like it was bourbon, your grandma saved lives, not just medically. She showed up for everyone. I nodded. Yeah, she showed up for me too. Miriam smiled, but then her face shifted a bit, softer, sadder. She wrote me a letter before she passed, she said. Said if anything happened, I should stop by, that you'd probably be here. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, square envelope. Old paper, familiar handwriting. My hands shook a little when I took it. Mimi, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Which is annoying, because we still hadn't finished that jigsaw puzzle from '93. I left everything to my name. You'll meet him, sweet boy, smarter than he thinks. He won't know where to start. Tell him about the back garden, about the old box in the attic, and most of all, remind him not to forget Joy, not even on the hard days. Love always, E. I looked up, throat tight. She knew I'd be lost, I said quietly. She also knew you. Figure it out, Miriam replied. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that feels more like a hug than a pause. And Miriam stood up, bones creaking like old wood floors. I better go, she said. Still got bingo at 7 and my ride's impatient. Wait, what did she mean about the back garden? Miriam gave me a sly smile. That's for you to find out, but wear boots. She winked, and then she was gone. That evening, I stood at the edge of the garden, holding a flashlight and a shovel, feeling like I was about to uncover a pirate chest or a zombie hand. I knew the spot. Grandma used to sit there on a stool with a faded umbrella and hum to herself. Said the soil was just right. I dug, carefully. About 2 feet down, I hit something. Wood, a box, old but sealed tight. Inside, a photo album, a tin of seed packets, a folded flag, and a little envelope addressed to, whenever you find this. To my dear boy, if you're reading this, it means you're still curious. Good, that's the only tool you ever really need. These seeds there from the original garden. I brought them from my mama's house in 1963. They've lasted this long. Plant them, watch what grows, and never forget, love doesn't stop. It just changes form. Grandma. I didn't cry. Okay, I cried. Like ugly cried. Snot, dirt, all of it. Right there in the dark, surrounded by worms and old roots and the stubborn ghosts of every vegetable she ever grew. Next morning, I went to the hardware store, bought fresh soil, new gloves, a notebook. That afternoon, I started planting, because maybe that's what inheritance really is. Not money, not property, just the things someone leaves behind that make you want to stay alive long enough to pass them on. So here's the thing about old houses, they attract attention. Some of it is sweet, neighbors dropping off cuttings, kids waving when they pass on bikes, people saying, "Your grandma helped deliver me," which is both beautiful and vaguely unsettling. But then there's the other kind of attention. A month after the article hit, I got a visit. Not from family, not from more of Grandma's bingo crew. This time, it was a guy in a clean polo, khakis too crisp to be trusted, and a business card with gold-embossed letters. "Hi there, I'm Todd, from Riverline Development." Oh boy, he did the whole smilin' small talk routine. Complimented the garden, asked about the cats. Yes, I eventually took in 3 from the shelter, all with dramatic names. Duchess, Meatball, and Kevin. Then got to the point. "We're working on a revitalization project. The city's hopping to modernize this block. Turn these properties into a multi-use space, cafes, housing, maybe a community center. And we'd love to make you an offer." He said the number. It had 6 digits, started with a 5. I won't lie, I felt my knees go a little weird. 50-something-year-old plumbing, patchy roof, heating system that sounded like a haunted kettle. It was tempting. With that kind of money, I could pay off whatever debt was still floating around. Maybe get out of this sleepy town, start fresh somewhere. I asked for a few days to think about it. He left behind a packet, glossy mock-ups of future shops, families sipping lattes. Vision for 2030 in a pleasant sans serif font. That night I walked the house, room by room, noticing everything. A floorboard that creaked like it was laughing. The smell of cinnamon still baked into the wallpaper. The corner of the hall where she kept a jar of butterscotch candies for visitors, long since melted together, but still sacred. I sat in the back garden. The new plants were just sprouting, Grandma's legacy pushing up through the soil like stubborn little miracles. And I realized something. That money would solve a lot of things. But it wouldn't fix me, wouldn't fill the quiet of the kitchen when the kettle starts whistling, wouldn't recreate the mornings I'd find her in the yard, covered in dirt, humming some old tune about sunshine. This house was more than wood and wiring. It was proof that someone can live, love, give, and still echo long after they're gone. So I said no. Todd didn't take it well, tried to sweeten the deal, tossed in talk of legacy and community uplift. I told him my grandma was the community uplift, one casserole at a time. A few weeks later, I started something new. With a little help from that cat fund she left, I turned the shed out back into a tiny community lending library and garden swap. I call it Elsie's Corner. People come by, drop off books, pick up herbs, some leave little notes. One kid even left a drawing of Meatball wearing sunglasses. The local paper did a follow-up story. They called it, "Boy Turns Grief into Garden, a New Chapter for an Old House." I kept the clipping. It's in the photo album now. Right next to a Polaroid of Grandma with dirt on her face and the world's biggest tomato in her hand, grinning like she just solved life. Sometimes I still hear from family. Cousin Leela sent me a message saying she wanted to visit. I told her she was welcome, but she'd be pulling weeds if she came. She hasn't followed up. Uncle Greg tried to send a Christmas card with a Starbucks gift card inside. I gave it to a kid from the shelter who volunteers here on weekends. Sometimes, kindness skips a generation. You just have to reroute it. And me, I'm still figuring things out. I'm taking online classes, volunteering at the local clinic, learning to make pickles. They're still terrible, but I'm getting there. And every morning I check the garden, talk to the cats, water the sprouts, because grief doesn't end, but it grows roots. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it flowers.